من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار. After praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, sending his greeting and salutation on the final Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, we find certain slogans become common practice that are on top of the lips and tongues of every single individual. Sometimes slogans and statements don't mean much in the mizan of Islam. But these slogans that probably many of us have heard, or this form of revivalism that people are calling towards, which may be classified as, quote, da'wah to salaf, unquote, the call to the way of the salaf. What is the call to the way of the salaf? Because some people think or understand that the call da'wah to salaf is just certain parameters of aqa'id, and there's no doubt that is the most important thing that the salaf focus and concentrated upon, to rectify their belief, to find the most accurate Puritan Orthodox belief. فَإِنْ آمَنُوا بِمِثْلِ مَا آمَنْتُمْ بِهِ فَقَدْ اهْتَدَوْا. If you believe as they believe, then you will be rightly guided. Likewise, a person should not contend with the believers and go against the way of the believers. Whoever contends with the messenger after guidance has been shown to the individual, وَيَتَّبِعْ غَيْرَ سَبِيلِ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ نُوَلِّهِ مَا تَوَلَّى وَنُصْلِهِ جَهَنَّمَ وَسَاءَتْ مَصِيرًا. Inside Surah Al-Nisa, the 4th chapter of Qur'an, some verse 100 or so, if my memory serves me correct at this stage. Whoever goes against the way of the believers, man humul mu'minun, who are the believers? The believers are none other than the companions, the beloved individuals, the men and women around the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So that is one concept, and obviously the most important concept that we should all be focusing upon. Walakin when it comes to other aspects of da'wah to salaf, min nahiyat al-akhlaq, or in terms of character, adab, etiquette, behavior, at-ta'awun, helping, deliverance, aiding, assisting, welfare, taking care, then unfortunately, not to belittle any individual or fraction or group, it no longer becomes da'wah to salaf, it becomes da'wah of the self, S-E-L-F, me, myself and I. Take the da'wah shamilan, take the call in all of its aspects. And obviously we know that some of us, we begin to select those things that concern us. And thus if we go back and return to basic elementary ahadith before we begin to dissect deeper concepts of ahadith, we don't have the right, we don't have the ability to enter into mustalah al-hadith or ulum al-hadith or tahqiq al-hadith or tad'ib al-hadith or tashih al-hadith, to reject the hadith, to authenticate the hadith, to weaken a hadith, criticize a hadith, make shar of the hadith. Just stick to the basic ahadith and try to implement them inside our lives. Amongst those basic ahadith which talk about this Muslim Ummah, talk about al-Ukhuwat al-Islamiyya, about being Muslims. If you go pick up any book on Targheeb or Tarheeb, the best book of Fada'il, obviously after the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the best book of virtues is Riyadus-Salihin by Imam al-Nawawi. Many ulama mention that every book, every masjid, every house should have Riyadus-Salihin inside its house. There are a few ahadith in there that ulama made a critique of, but a large portion of the ahadith inside Riyadus-Salihin, much fawaid, much benefits. Likewise, you find the works of Targheeb or Tarheeb of Imam al-Mundhiri, beneficial book that you find, giving Targheeb al-Nas or Tarheeb al-Nas, encouraging people to do certain actions and to stay away from certain actions. So if you go back and look and read these ahadith, which talk about a Muslim brother towards another Muslim brother, you find generic terminologies. In the Qur'an, وَإِنَّ هَذِهِ أُمَّتُكُمْ أُمَّةً وَاحِدَةً وَأَنَا رَبُّكُمْ فَاعْبُدُونَ. Twice inside the Qur'an with slight different variations. Once فَاعْبُدُونَ, the other occasion فَاتَّقُونَ. First inside Surah Al-Anbiya, the 21st chapter of the Qur'an, the chapter of the prophets. And then the 23rd chapter of the Qur'an, the chapter of the believers and mu'minun. This is how the Qur'an describes the Muslim Ummah. You are one nation, one people. What should we do once we are in this state that many people may begin to highlight? The Muslim Ummah is in a pitiful state because of its corrupt belief, because of the shirk. وَمَا يُؤْمِنُ أَكْثَرُهُمْ بِاللَّهِ إِلَّا وَهُمْ مُشْرِكُونَ. Most of them believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but they're mushrikun. That's what the Qur'an says towards the end of Surah Yusuf, the 12th chapter of the Qur'an. Likewise, the da'wah of the belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala isn't the agenda of a certain regime or a people. It's the da'wah of the Qur'an. Inside Surah Al-Ma'idah, إِنَّهُ مَنْ يُشْرِكْ بِاللَّهِ فَقَدْ حَرَّمَ اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ الْجَنَّةَ وَمَأْوَاهُ النَّارُ وَمَا لِلظَّالِمِينَ مِنْ أَنصَارٍ. Whoever commits shirk with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, فَقَدْ حَرَّمَ اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ الْجَنَّةَ. Allah has made it haram for that person to ever go into paradise. Allah has made it haram. Not an individual, not a fraction, not a movement. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that that person haram for that person ever to go into paradise. So this is one reason why this Muslim Ummah is in a pitiful state. If you look through our countries, look through our belief, shirkiyat, khurafat, innovations, bad practices has led to the stagnation of this Muslim Ummah. The second excuse that people give is lack of ihtimam bi sunnati, a lack of devotion towards the sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The sunnah is trivial. The sunnah is petty. We need to follow a life of modernism. There's also a new onslaught that begins to take place upon this Muslim Ummah. Another fraction of people, they think the reason why this Muslim Ummah is in its state is love of the dunya, not following the path of zuhud, of abstinence, chasing after this dunya, luxuries of the dunya, that thus we become in this pitiful state. Another fraction of Muslims, they begin to think we don't have a system based upon the khilafah, based upon the rules and regulations of sharia. We don't have the proper economic system, the political system, so thus we are corrupt. All these elements are possibly true. Another fraction of Muslims believe that there is no striving and struggling jihad fi sabilillah because people are not doing this, so we're in a pitiful state. The truth doesn't lie in any one of these views. It lies in all of them together. And all of them together have been prophesied by the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. In a hadith in Sunan Abi Dawud, إِذَا تَبَايَعْتُمْ بِالْعِينَةِ. You begin to deal with عِينَةِ. وَالْعِينَةِ نَوْءٌ مِنَ الرِّبَى. عِينَةِ is a type of interest. You don't need to be a clever individual. It's not rocket science. You can see what's happening at the moment in the Muslim world and outside the Muslim world. The whole system is based upon عِينَةِ, about usury, interest. إِذَا تَبَايَعْتُمْ بِالْعِينَةِ وَأَخَذْتُمْ بِأَذْنَابِ الْبَقَرِ. You take the tails of the cows. وَرَضِيتُمْ بِالزَّرْعِ. You become happy with cultivation of the land. وَتَرَكْتُمُ الْجِهَادِ. And you leave striving and struggling in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. سَلَّطَ اللَّهُ عَلَيْكُمْ ذُلًّا.
لا ينزعه حتى ترجعوا إلى دينكم. That Allah will throw a disgrace upon you and will never ever lift that disgrace upon you until you don't return back to your deen. Those who may be thinking about authenticity of this hadith, and Shaykh Nasruddin al-Albani has authenticated this hadith in the Sunan of Abi Dawood. That's the answer. This is the state of the Muslim Ummah. No matter what anyone says, all this together has led us to this pitiful state. But whilst we are inside this pitiful state, what should we do? Should we now, because of our corrupt beliefs, our lack of sunnah, our love of the dunya, no Islamic system, should we now, just like we take a corrupt apple and just throw it out the garden? Should we now take out the weed and just throw it out? Should we just now amputate a ligament of a body? Is that how we should conduct ourselves? Yes, it's partially true. ظهر الفساد في البر والبحر بما كسبت أيدي الناس ليذيقهم بعد الذي عملوا لعلهم يرجعون. Fasad has appeared upon the land and the ocean because what man has set forth with his own hands. That's how some people, you find these statements, you can only conclude a lack of knowledge and understanding of Qur'an and Sunnah. Some people make such bold statements, it serves them right. You call yourself a Muslim. Even a non-Muslim has some pity. Even a non-Muslim says that sometimes there are atrocities that are taking place. And for a Muslim to make such a bold statement and say that these people serves them right, we should not do anything to help them. The ayah continues. You may taste the fruits that you sent with your own hands, and then what? You may return back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So these fitan, these trials, whoever is to blame, are placed at times that Muslims can return back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Likewise, the end of Surah Tawbah, أَوَلَا يَرَوْنَ أَنَّهُمْ يُفْتَنُونَ فِي كُلِّ عَامٍ مَرَّةً أَوْ مَرَّتَيْنِ ثُمَّ لَا يَتُوبُونَ وَلَا هُمْ يَذَّكَّرُونَ. Don't you see we test you once or twice in a year? Why don't you repent? Why don't you repent, turn back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Hikmatullahi baligha. Immense wisdom of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. No one can ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, why do you allow certain actions to take place? But while these actions take place, what should we do? Should we just amputate the body? And that parable has been given by the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. There's no spare parts of a body. But these non-Muslims say that you can live with one kidney, donate one kidney to somebody else. What if you need that kidney yourself at a later stage? لَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ فِي أَحْسَنِ تَقْوِيمٍ. Man has been creating the best mold, the best structure. You need every part of your body. And thus the Prophet mentioned, تَرَى الْمُؤْمِنِينَ فِي تَوَادِهِمْ وَتَعَاطُفِهِمْ وَتَرَاحُمِهِمْ. You find the believers in their love, their devotion and commitment towards one another like one body. If one part of the body has a pain, then the whole of the body feels that pain. What does that mean? Does the hadith say that one fraction of Muslims, one type of Muslims, does it say that? Or does it mention, remember these are generic statements, go back to Riyadh al-Salihin, you'll find all these hadith there inshallah. This is how the Muslim is. One body. Together. And remember as I mentioned, you go back and you read the works of Da'at al-Salaf, Tara Aja'ib. You know, some of the ulama, go back and look at the works of Imam Zahabi, Sir A'lam al-Nubala, volumes that talk about lives of the noble individuals. You know, some of these ulama we talk about, ulama of the Salaf, ما كانوا ينامون بالليل, never used to sleep at night. Were restless. Their mothers would say to them, why are you restless? Said, you know why we're restless tonight. Someone's been punished, someone's been tortured, someone's been harassed. How can I sleep at night? Then we talk about Da'wat al-Salaf. Go and pick up any book of any of the great ulama about their life, their contribution, and their concern about this Muslim Ummah. You'll find that throughout their lives, that they became troubled and worried. We have a beautiful sleep at night. I don't think ever, وَالْعِلْمُ إِنْدَ اللَّهِ سُبْحَانَهُ وَتَعَالَى, we've ever had a restless night, worrying about the wider world. You know, the type of parable that we have, when you have a small toothache, what happens? The whole of your body begins to feel that pain, that fever. Isn't it? We are living in a fever every single day. We don't seem to recognize that fever. Because you know why? It's not on my doorstep. It doesn't concern me. Why should I be worried? Why should I be worried? Those people that put themselves in that situation, whatever it may be, let them deal with the situation. Is that the approach that we should be taking in our lives? Unsur akhaka in kana zaliman aw mazluman. Aid your brother, whether he is the oppressor or the oppressed. Aid your brother. That's what the Sharia teaches us. Whoever your brother is, aid him. Hatta the Qur'an goes to such a degree, وَإِن طَائِفَتَانِ مِنَ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ اقْتَتَلُوا فَأَصْلِحُوا بَيْنَهُمَا. The Qur'an doesn't say if two Muslims fight. The Qur'an says that if two believers they fight, then what should you do? Reconcile between the two. The Qur'an doesn't say one group is believers and the other group are disbelievers. The Qur'an says that both groups are believers. If you go and read the tafsir, this ayah inside Surah Al-Hujurat, if you want to establish an Islamic society, you know how many ayat you need? You only need 18 ayat. If we can only be an ummah who implements the 49th chapter of the Qur'an, that is the answer to all of our problems. All the ethics, the conduct, the behavior, the belief, everything has been documented inside 18 ayat of the Qur'an inside Surah Al-Hujurat. In the tafsir of this ayah that you find, when two groups of the believers begin to fight, what happened? The Prophet Muhammad went to visit the leader of the hypocrites. And you know, we have so many hypocrites at the moment, people who sell their soul for a bowl of rice. That's what the problem is. In my life, I've never ever been worried about non-Muslims in my life. And inshallah, never will be. But you know what bothers me now more and more? About my own Muslim brothers stabbing me in my back. That's what bothers me now in my life. That's the type of people that we find. We can't even find a common ground of understanding. We read works of aqaid and belief. The worst Muslim is better than the best kafir. Simple. Simple it is. You don't need to be a great big scholar to understand that. The worst Muslim is better than the best kafir upon this earth. Muhammadur Rasulullah وَالَّذِينَ مَعَهُ أَشِدَّعُ عَلَى الْكُفَّارِ رُحَمَاءُ بَيْنَهُمْ. Muhammad is the messenger of Allah. Those who are with him when the time is right are stern against the disbelievers. Doesn't mean we oppress them, we be incorrect towards them. رُحَمَاءُ بَيْنَهُمْ. Merciful, compassionate, kind, caring towards one another. This ayah is what today? It's turned around. We are رُحَمَاء مِنَ الْكُفَّارِ أَشِدَّاءَ عَلَى الْمُؤْمِنِينَ. Look at some people so merciful, compassionate, bend over backwards for disbelievers. That's what some Muslims are doing at the moment, bend over backwards for them. And how they're towards their own Muslims. Harsh, coarse, rude, arrogant, disrespect towards them. Quran is plain, it's clear, it's simple. But obviously when we have a lack of vision and understanding and perception, that who is pulling the strings and we fall into these traps. Read the tafsir of this ayat at Surah Al-Hujurat. The Prophet Muhammad went to visit the leader of the hypocrites. When he went towards him, we find that he mentioned to the Prophet Muhammad, "Ilayka anni, get away from me. Your donkey stinks." Look at the audacity of this man to say that about the Prophet Muhammad in public. The companions were emotional individuals at times. So one of the companions said that, "Wallahi, the smell of the donkey smells better than you. The smell of the ass smells better than you. You smell far worse than that." So what happened? A scuffle broke out between the Muslims. And then this individual, this hypocrite, he went on the side. They began to hit each other with shoes, sandals, rocks, stones, whatever they could find. And this hypocrite is standing aside, rubbing his hands. That's what he wanted. Divide and rule. Divide and conquer. Create upheaval, misunderstanding, problems amongst the believers. And thus this ayah was sent down to ulama tafsir that they mentioned. Reconcile between the believers. But some of us, unfortunately, we are very shallow. We are very shallow individuals. We can't seem to understand anything that begins to take place. It's quite sad and shameful to mention sometimes non-Muslims are more concerned about what's happening. They're sometimes more concerned with what's happening than we are concerned. The hadith mentions, وَكُونُوا عِبَادَ اللَّهِ إِخْوَانًا. All of you become brethren towards one another. There are certain things that there is a common ground upon. That a person comes to that common ground. وَتَعَاوَنُوا عَلَى الْبِرِّ وَالتَّقْوَى وَلَا تَعَاوَنُوا عَلَى الْإِثْمِ وَالْعُدْوَانِ. Encourage one another towards piety and good actions. Don't come towards oppression and hardship and incorrect actions. That's what a person should be coming towards. Hatta you find that even in the Qur'an, blessed names, Al-Muhajirun, not Al-Muhajirun here, Al-Ansar, inside Surah At-Tawbah, verse 100 if I'm not mistaken, talking about the first individuals. These are blessed slogans, blessed titles. But once again, what happens? When a boy from Ansar slapped another boy from Muhajirun, or the opposite, can't recall this day, the correct wording of the hadith. But anyhow, the person called out, Ya Al-Ansar, oh followers of Al-Ansar, come and help me, come to my rescue. So the Muhajirun, being a young individual, he called his followers, come to my rescue, to my aid. And once again, another scuffle broke out between the two factions. What did the Prophet Muhammad say? Da'uha, leave it. Because indeed a foul stench comes from these calls of Jahiliyyah. These are praiseworthy names. Al-Muhajirun wal-Ansar. But if your names and your slogans I began with lead you to begin to harm other individuals, not to give them their rights, then that is something detrimental. وَمَنْ أَحْسَنُ قَوْلًا مِمَّنْ دَعَا إِلَى اللَّهِ وَعَمِلَ صَالِحًا وَقَالَ إِنَّنِي مِنَ الْمُسْلِمِينَ. Quran said, who is the best individual? The best individual is one who calls to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and does righteous actions and says, I am amongst the Muslims, the ones that submit. مِلَّةَ أَبِيكُمْ إِبْرَاهِيمُ هُوَ سَمَّاكُمُ الْمُسْلِمِينَ مِنْ قَبْلُ وَفِي هَذَا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala called you the name of Muslims before, and likewise in this testimony inside the Qur'an as well. So that's you find al-Muslim, akhul Muslim. A Muslim is a brother of another Muslim. It doesn't say a Muslim is a brother to so-and-so or to so-and-so. Al-Muslim, akhul Muslim. لا يظلمه ولا يخذله. But a Muslim doesn't oppress him, doesn't let him down, doesn't betray him, doesn't belittle him. Everything about the Muslim. Al-Muslim للمسلم كالبنيان يشد بعضه بعضا ثم شبك بين أصابعه صلى الله عليه وسلم. A Muslim to another Muslim is like a building. You take a brick out of that pillar, it may not look weak. Give it a few days, give it a few months, and eventually that pillar will collapse and the whole building will collapse. ثم شبك بين أصابعه. So somebody put his hands together like this. This is how the Muslim is. One building. That's what the Quran mentions. إِنَّ اللَّهَ يُحِبُّ الَّذِينَ يُقَاتِلُونَ فِي سَبِيلِهِ صَفًّا. We can't even make our rows straight in prayers. So how are we going to make our rows straight in something else? Somebody stands there, someone stands there. These things are trivial, they're not very important. This is the beginning. وَعِدُّ لَهُمْ مَسْتَطَعْتُ مِنْ قُوَّةٍ وَمِنْ رِبَاطِ الْخَيْرِ. It's the beginning. Preparation. And the prayer. وَاسْتَعِينُوا بِالصَّبْرِ وَالصَّلَاةِ وَإِنَّهَا لَكَبِيرَةٌ إِلَّا عَلَى الْخَاشِعِينَ. Seek aid and assistance via the prayer and patience. Indeed, it's going to be something difficult except for those people who are submissive to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is the essence of the Muslim. The Muslim strengthens another Muslim. Sees the weakness. A Muslim to another Muslim is like a mirror, a reflection. You see that they have discrepancies in their belief, in their actions, whatever it may be, in their corruption. Muslim takes them by the hand, advises them, takes care of them. A Muslim, whoever clothes a Muslim in this world, then Allah will clothe him inside the akhirah, best of the garments. Whoever gives drink to a Muslim in this world, Allah will give him drink in a better world. Have we ever tried to give a Muslim a drink? Does that mean going buying a bottle of Coke and giving it to someone? Do we do charitable actions? Have we ever thought about charitable actions? لَن تَنَالُوا الْبِرَّ حَتَّى تُنْفِقُوا مِمَّا تُحِبُّونَ. You're never going to attain piety because we've restricted piety. The Quran said you're never going to attain piety حَتَّى تُنْفِقُوا مِمَّا تُحِبُّونَ, until you don't spend of the things that you love. You don't spend of the things that you don't love. That's what it means to gain piety. And remember, as I began with, we've become da'wah of the self. S-E-L-F. Selfish individuals. Not for the worrying about what khairat that we can do. وَمَا تَفْعَلُ مِنْ خَيْرٍ يَعْلَمُ اللَّهُ. Whatever goodness you do, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows about it. The person should be trying to do these good actions of finding a way into paradise, finding to drink in paradise, whoever feeds a person, clothes a person, takes care of a person, whoever raises an orphan, takes care of an orphan. How close will that person be to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam? By the time we bypass these ahadith, we're not worried about these ahadith, they don't really concern me. وَأَحْسِنْ كَمَا أَحْسَنَ اللَّهُ إِلَيْكَ. Show goodness to people like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala showed goodness to you. Simple, isn't it? It's not a theoretical discussion. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala showed goodness to all of us. These are all blessings. هَذَا مِنْ فَضْلِ رَبِّي. These are all the blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala upon all of us. That is the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the more that you possess, the more that you own, the more you have the ability, the more you'll be asked for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So what did you do for those people? What do you do for those people that I'm sure that some of us have become so that we don't even, doesn't even seem to move our hearts anymore. That we see people in a state of poverty, state of no food, no drink, no clothing. It doesn't move us. أَلَمْ يَأْنِ لِلَّذِينَ آمَنُوا تَخْشَعَ قُلُوبُهُمْ لِذِكْرِ اللَّهِ وَمَا نَزَلَ مِنَ الْحَقِّ. The mu'mins, the believers, their heart should be soft. Tranquility, submission. They see these things, it begins to worry them. Then maybe what can I do to try to help these Muslims? What's my contribution? Whatever it may be. That's you find, as we mentioned, basic, elementary ahadith, if there's such a thing as elementary ahadith. لا يؤمن أحدكم حتى يحب لأخيه ما يحب لنفسه. None of you truly believes until he loves for his brother what he loves for himself, who means بعض الروايات من الخير, from the goodness. What does that hadith mean? None of you truly believes. Doesn't mean if you don't do it that you're a disbeliever, because بمعنى ناقص الإيمان. Person is deficient. Whenever a hadith mentioned لا يؤمن أحدكم, you don't believe, or that person doesn't believe, it doesn't mean that iman is taken away from the person. That's a deviant view. بمعنى أنه ناقص الإيمان. The person is deficient in the iman. There's weakness inside the iman. What does it mean then? None of you truly believes until he loves for his brother what he loves for himself. What do we love for ourselves? Simple, isn't it? What do we love for ourselves? So when we see them, do we want them to share those blessings? Do we want to pass those blessings to them? Do we want to encourage them? Do we want to help them? The poor children, don't we visualize it? The bad state that they happen to be in. And that's even if we can't make that participation, then what should a Muslim do? Because as the Chinese proverb goes, that may live in strange times. What should a Muslim do? If you cannot physically participate, you cannot maybe buy your wealth, then at least make dua. Even in secret, you don't want to do it in public, but maybe that may be politically incorrect, isn't it? Because some imams don't even make dua in public because maybe you might get arrested for making dua for the Muslim Ummah. But it may be in secret then. Oh Allah, these are your servants. Your male servants, your female servants. They're being oppressed. They're being tortured. They're being slaughtered. They're being butchered. They're being harmed. The innocent women. The innocent children. Remove this hardship from them, Ya Rabbi. Put ease upon them. Take away their suffering. And imagine this, sometimes people have come and asked me this question. And you know what? I don't have an answer for it. Imagine a young woman who's protected her life. Protected her hishma. Wears a hijab. Wears a niqab. Lowers her gaze. Learns the Qur'an. Preserves her prayers. Guards her chastity. And a non-Muslim takes away her dignity. She comes and says to you, what did I do? Kayfa tujib? What can you answer? What can we say? What can we say? What response can we give? And we claim to be men, the Muslim Ummah. And this is happening numerous times. So if we cannot even say anything, at least make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. At the end of the day, they're your servants. Whatever wrong they may have done, or the people around they have done, bring them out of this suffering, bring them out of this hardship. ضُرِبَتْ عَلَيْهِمُ الذِّلَّةُ أَيْنَمَا ثُقِفُوا. Indignity has been smashed upon us wherever we go. Many of us, we bring these ayat that talking about Ahlul Kitab, etc. It's referring to us Muslims today as well. We're in a state of Wherever we go, indignity is placed upon us. Hardships is placed upon us. Whatever the reason may be we mentioned. So we shouldn't be individuals just to brush it aside. And if we can't do that, من كان يؤمن بالله واليوم الآخر فليقل خيرا أو ليصمت. Whoever believes in Allah on the last day, either speak good or remain silent. So the stages are there. Either you can physically participate to go in whatever the welfare work, and that's what the media at the moment is trying to create, that don't get involved in doing any work. Look at some of these fertilos or whatever that they go, the amount of socialists, the amount of non-Muslims, and this, that, and the other, they go there. And some Muslim brothers who travel, not saying what's right or what's wrong, just trying to highlight the image. That they have patience, they have organization, they have skills, they have a mission, they have an objective, whatever the objective may be, they're disciplined. When our Muslims are doing the same thing, all emotional, get lost, don't know what to do, get frustrated, think they're fighting jihad, jump on a soldier, whatever it may be. No discipline in anything. That's what we are. Everything is just, there's no discipline. So we need to begin to discipline ourselves in what we want to do. We're not doing something haram. Are we doing something haram? Is it haram to collect food? Is it haram to collect money? Is it haram to collect clothing? Is it haram to send it over to a Muslim country? Is it haram? I don't. Is it haram? That some people think it's haram to do that now? But that's the image some of us are thinking in our minds, isn't it? That I'm guilty. I'm doing a haram action. So this is not the perception that we should have. The door of khairat is open. Wherever that you see that the people are doing good actions, that people who are good belief, and that money and wealth is being trusted and being reported or being delivered to that location, and we should try to participate in that khair, in that goodness. That's how a Muslim should be. Remember the day of judgment, we're all going to be needing avenues of goodness, that the left hand doesn't know what the right hand has spent. That is, the Muslim who's charitable, to gain avenues of coming into paradise. 7 individuals will be under the shade of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whereby there will be no shade. Amongst that group of individuals will be those individuals who give charity with their left hand, with their right hand, but their left hand doesn't know what they've spent. So that's how a Muslim should be. Finding ways and avenues, trying to help other Muslims, trying to do whatever they can, and in the best ability according to the Qur'an and Sunnah, create awareness, to encourage people. And these are also rights. These are also part of our belief, part of our action, part of our conduct, part of our behavior, to complete the whole image of the Muslim Ummah. وَاعْتَصِمُوا بِحَبْلِ اللَّهِ جَمِيعًا وَلَا تَفَرَّقُوا وَاذْكُرُوا نِعْمَةَ اللَّهِ إِذْ كُنتُمْ أَعْدَاءً فَأَلَّفَ بَيْنَ قُلُوبِكُمْ فَأَصْبَحْتُمْ بِنِعْمَتِهِ إِخْوَانًا. Remember the blessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Hold fast the rope of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The rope of Allah, ulama tafasir mention, whether it be the Qur'an, whether it be al-Islam, whether it be the Sunnah. All these names mean exactly the same thing. And remember the blessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that you were enemies, and Allah placed the mercy into your hearts and brought you together. Once we read tafsir of this ayah in Surah Al-Imran, you find the tribes of Aus wal Khazraj were battling with one another, animosity towards one another, over petty things. Our horse beat your horse in a race, and 30 years, 40 years, 50 years of fighting would take place. Then when Islam came, it brought these fractions together inside Medina, and you became brethren. That's in a hadith, وَكُونُوا عِبَادَ اللَّهِ إِخْوَانًا. Be brethren towards one another. Be compassionate, be understanding towards one another, and try to help one another, and strengthen one another, and advise one another towards that which is good. There's no individual and no fraction holds the total goodness or the total correctness. That is the belief of Ahl Sunnah. If anyone thinks that one individual or one total fraction holds everything that is right, then that is not a true statement to me. There are many individuals who still come under the flag of Ahl Sunnah, the barrier of Ahl Sunnah, and one should be tolerant and understanding and willing. They need to profess the faith, the correct creed, and to disseminate that to other individuals and to learn from other individuals, from their patience and their actions, their contributions. So inshallah, the brother here, Jazakallah khair, has come back from Pakistan here. Brother Adam here is in charge of Ummah Welfare Trust, is going to give a short reminder as well and show some of the work of the brothers. May Allah reward them for the efforts and place that inside the Mizan of Hasanat. I have to leave due to another program, so do excuse me, but do pay attention to what the brother says, inshallah. And and the slide or the documentary. Barakallahu feekum.